Ready to take your favorite Wager Talk handicappers wherever you travel this football season? The Wager Talk TV app is now live for phones, tablets, smart TVs, and streaming platforms. Tune into your favorite shows like Wager Talk Today, Bet on It, and the Opening Line Report, plus browse through our extensive library of sports betting tips. Create your personal playlist of betting tip videos to help you prepare for the upcoming season, and set notifications to alert you when new content is added. Download the app for Apple, Android, Amazon, and Roku devices by searching for Wager Talk TV, or scan the QR code on your screen to join the winning conversation today.
Or did you play it already? No idea where we are right now. Hey, welcome
we're probably
in.
Live
And we've been live for like 20 minutes talking about what's going in. I feel like I just did this here with these exact same three guys. And no, it is not college basketball we're going to be talking about. Rather, it is college football. As we welcome you guys back in the college football kickoff show here. And this will be really the last show of the year. We've got 2 games left to break down that we have not talked about here, and we've gone through all the bowl games. And guys, any of the if you're just joining us for the first time, we'd absolutely encourage you to check it out. YouTube, download the Wager Talk TV app. All of the shows, all of the content there for you, a couple of clicks away. All the bowl games broken down for you here over the last couple of weeks that we've done on the shows, and we've got 2 left. And that's going to be, of course, the playoff that is coming up. We're going to break these games down with these 3 gentlemen. If they look familiar, yes, it's because we just talked to them in a college basketball show. Tony Finn wanted to change. I was like, no, let's not do that. It would get real awkward. So instead, we get Bryan Leonard, we get Steve Merril, we get Tony Finn at their best. And also, I believe all 3 gentlemen here got a little something going heading into the weekend. Merril, 2 R's and 1 L. Tell us, do you have a bowl game locked and loaded yet on the remaining ones, or what else you got going on at Wager Talk?
Yeah, I got some big plans for the next few days in the bowls. You know, we've got 14, including the national title game, 14 bowls remaining. Friday, Saturday, Monday, and then the one next week. So there's a lot of bowl action to go, and you can get it for free right now when you buy my NFL package. And there's lots of NFL to go to. We have a couple months of the NFL. Buy the $199 NFL package through the Super Bowl in February. You get the bowls, a $100 value included for free. It's on my page right now. No promo code needed. And I do have a strong best bet in the Orange Bowl tonight. So why not start out tonight on Friday and get that Orange Bowl for free the rest of the football season, that combo offer. Steve Merril, wagertalk.com. And a quick reminder, it's our last college football show of the year, but I will be back with a college football preview video for this weekend, and also my NFL Fade the Public video this New Year's Eve on Saturday. So check that out here on Wager Talk TV.
Yes, he will. Always great information there. And Bryan Leonard, straight off of that huge 5% win, another one. You don't have a ton of those 5% best bets, but the NHL, you continue to be one of the most profitable handicappers here over the years on the ice. You nailed another one last night. Congrats. Anything you're looking forward to? NFL, NHL, NBA, college hoops, anything going on at wagertalk.com?
As of now, I don't have anything up, but I will say I am undefeated in the bowls.
Oh,
put out 1 play, an underdog who won straight up in New Mexico State, and my best bet on my other bowl show was Washington over Texas. So yeah, I don't do a lot with the bowls, but I pick and choose. And these 2 we're going with tonight, we're going to be speaking about. One of those actually may make the card, depending on what kind of line movement we get. But yeah, we'll go for a big weekend, and I'll get to that tomorrow, obviously.
All right. Well, speaking about a man who knows something about bowls, Tony Finn joining us here on the show. Tony, what is going? You never met a bowl you didn't like. I know, Tony. Talk to us here, man. What do you have rolling tonight heading into this weekend up at wagertalk.com? NFL, I'm guessing.
The bowl. The bowl's rolling off of my desk right now, so that's
Popping seed.
What do I have?
Popping seed.
That's why the police are outside.
That's right.
And they're disguised. They're disguised as
work.
Electricians.
Yeah.
We had I have all my bowl game action up live. I don't believe I'm going to. At least I don't have any expectations of adding anything, save a player prop or team prop, game prop, possibly. And I have an opinion, and I have a position in both of the games we'll be discussing today. I won't try to give it all away, although I'm pretty bad at hiding how I feel, as you guys well know. So that said, I have one NBA game that I'm waiting on some injury reports, college basketball, as well. I have one game I'm waiting on some intel, and everything should be good to go tonight. Visit Tony's Fin at Wager Talk, only at Wager Talk.
All right, guys, let us start here. Of course, game number one, which is going to be the 4 o'clock Fiesta Bowl Eastern time here, coming up on the 31st, which would be New Year's, coming up this weekend here, guys. TCU, the little engine that could. We've had these in the past, namely, I believe, Cincinnati, right? Last year, that little one, the little guy, David versus Goliath. 7.5 for Michigan right now, 58 as a total. And if we look at some of what we've had here, the movement in this here, what did we get originally open was about 8. The total has come down a little bit, 59 and a half. That seems to be coming down as well over the last couple of weeks. The bottom line is, hey, if you think TCU, Bryan Leonard, if TCU has a puncher's chance in this one, got to take the points here, no?
When this line came out, I believe it opened 8 and it went to 9. And I said, my goal is to get 10. I wanted 10. And 2 days later, I believe, it went down to 7.5. And I said, well, I'll never see that 10 again if I ever caught in the first place. But I'm like the rest of these guys. I don't play for action. I don't care if the game's on TV or not. I just want to win. Just want to pay the bills. Got to be able to take vacation sometime. That's the goal. I'm not Prez. I don't get to take a vacation every 2 days.
Good point.
Yeah, if I don't find the number I'm looking for, I'm not going to play it. That said, I am from Cleveland. I'm a Big Ten fan. I'm not a fan of Michigan. And I really like the way this TCU team has played. I love the quarterback. This is a team I'm rooting for. Max Dugan is one tough guy. And he doesn't have the physical talent some of the other guys have, but this guy is a winner. And if I can get that guy quarterbacking a team, catching more than a touchdown, I'm going to look that way. And that's the way I look here. TCU, it won't make my card. As I said, I wanted to have 10 here. But this is a team who has faced adversity all season long. God knows how much money we have lost betting against TCU to fade them all season long. And sometimes you find teams in every sport that win. Look at the Patriots. The Patriots were the best team all these years. They had the best coach, great Hall of Fame quarterback. Every week, somebody's looking to fade the Patriots. How many times? And then all that time with those two together, I believe they had the best record against the spread in the NFL. Sometimes teams do things that they just find ways to win. Tennessee Titans have done that with the coach they have now. You've got once in a while, you've just got to say, you know what, maybe this team is better than what their numbers show. And that puts me on TCU here. I won't get there for my clients, but that's a team I'm rooting for. I just wish somebody would go out there and maybe Mattress Max would put a big bet on Michigan, and I could get that 10. I don't think it's going to show, but if it does, I'll be on it. But leaning that way in this one. I'll have a better feel in the next game.
It's you would think here, and Merril, I've talked about this game now the last couple of weeks, trying to predict on is the Michigan money going to come in late, do you think? Do you think prior to kick this thing might get pushed up a little bit more? If you're thinking about backing TCU, do you hold out? Do you think that maybe the market is just waiting to see if that money comes. If it doesn't, maybe sevens are in the cards here. How do you think this plays out before kickoff?
Yeah, I think it's most likely higher. I think it closes. If I had to guess, I'd say it's going to close 8 or 8.5. And that's assuming right now the consensus line is 7.5. There's a few 8s out there, by the way. So that's another reason, Joe. I think it's more likely to go up than down. But the other reason is because if you like TCU, you probably grab the 7.5, or you definitely grab the 8. Probably it might go to 8.5 or 9. Those are dead numbers. 9 is what we call a dead number. 7 is a very key number. Bryan talked about getting to 10. 7 is the other key number in that hemisphere. About a 4 to 5% chance Michigan wins this game by exactly 7 points. So if you like Michigan, I would definitely hold off. Don't lay the 7.5. If you end up laying 8 or 8.5, so be it. But to get down to 7, the risk reward is good. The risk reward is bad on TCU to wait. I would grab the 7.5 or 8, which is out there now at a couple spots, South Point and one of the offshores. The other thing I'll mention on this is I don't have a lot of good public consensus data. Some people were asking me to do a fade the college public video, and I would have loved to have done that with the bowls. They're obviously very public, but the numbers are kind of all over the place. But for what I've looked at, I do think TCU's got a little bit of public sentiment, more so than the Ohio State-Georgia game, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. So that is a case you could make that maybe the public's been going to come in on TCU, but I think there'll be some buyback also because, as Bryan said, this line did open as high as 9.5. Now it's down to 7.5. So the early money, which is sharp money, was on TCU. They didn't wait for a +10, which was a little surprising to me. I'm not sure why they would jump in at 9.5. So I think we will see a little bit of buyback from the bigger money on Michigan as well. And once again, anybody that likes Michigan that's halfway sharp is probably waiting to see if maybe a rogue 7 pops up, which I don't think it will. So yeah, I think this line will close 8, 8.5. And one thing I'll point out about both these games is that in general, these semi-playoff games have not been very exciting. About half of them had double-digit blowouts. We saw that throughout the 90s, the 80s and 90s in the Super Bowl. We've seen that in the college championship game over the last several years. Almost all the games have been double-digit margins, even when they've been competitive. So of the two games here, if there's one team you could see winning by double digits, it's Michigan, because I do think TCU is the weakest team in the playoff. I do not feel they deserve to be in the Final Four. I was glad to see them lose because I thought that was going to get them out of the picture, but I get it. The committee is weak. They could not put a 2-loss Alabama ahead of them, even though Alabama would be over a touchdown favorite against TCU. So it goes back to, are we really looking for the 4 best teams, or do we have a criteria which gets them there? I have no problem with the criteria that gets them there if they're not the 4 best. I just don't like how vague it is, and I don't think TCU deserves to be here. So once again, if one of these games is going to be a double-digit margin like they normally are, you would think it's probably going to be this one, and Michigan wins by double.
Yeah, it's the 4 most deserving or the 4 best, because they're not exactly the same. But I mean, listen, if you think the Minnesota Vikings have had some luck this year in 1-score games, my goodness, TCU just seems, outside of that last one in the rematch in which they lost to K-State by 3. You get to the point where it's like, hey, is this just a lucky team, or is this team know how to win close games? And that's really what you got to ask yourself here for TCU, because if they are that good, Tony Finn, then Michigan better do all it can to keep Max Duggan and everyone else in that offense on the sideline and control the line of scrimmage and put this game away first chance they get. Do you think they can do that? Will they have success pushing TCU around?
Well, it sounds like everyone, and I don't sounds like, everyone would agree. TCU's done a great job of winning close games, finding a way to be on the right side of the scoreboard, and sometimes, many times, the wrong side of common sense or probability. That's been, unfortunately, as Steve just said, you don't have to worry about them worrying about whether they're going to win a close game here, because I don't think it's going to be close. Let's go ahead and say this. I'm one of those that, fortunately for me, I'm above water a little bit with TCU because of totals, not because of sides. Not because of sides, because they have continued to prove me wrong. And, I hope that's not the case here, because I'm on Michigan. But for a lot of reasons. One of the things is that Big 12 isn't known for its defensive prowess. But this year, maybe a little bit more defensive than in years past. We didn't see any totals in the 80s that I remember, or 90s of Big 12 games. And TCU depends on, at least they depend offensively on threat to run the football. They have run the football for a couple hundred yards in game on average many times. I don't think that happens against Michigan. Dugan's been good. He's been good. The Sonny Swoon. Where is the Sonny Swoon? The Sonny Swoon probably is this weekend. And I listen. I like Sonny. I like it, but this is a team that's they're not that great defensively, guys. They're just not. And while the number's big, and if I'm speaking to defense, then why aren't I taking the big number? Because I trust in McCarthy. I'm gonna get to a trust here in a minute. I trust in Harbaugh, believe it or not. I've never really trusted in Harbaugh, but I think he has the edge here. I know this team has the edge. I know the play personnel has the edge. TCU is not Georgia, and what you saw last year from Michigan in the semis, I think you see the contrary. You're just going to see Michigan play well. They've done it already up this year. There's been so many times, guys, that the three of us or the four of us would have said, I can't believe Michigan played that way and played that well. Give me Michigan minus the number.
Michigan minus the number. And the total going to be fascinating in that one as well. The question is Harbaugh going to empty the playbook and reveal anything? Because in the other game, it's going to be the Peach Bowl, 8 o'clock, guys, as Ohio State, who got in there. Why? Well, not because they beat Michigan, but because TCU didn't beat K-State, which is what gave them the opportunity to be here. Georgia 6. This opened up 7, I believe. 62.5 is the total. That's been creeping up here a little bit. Obviously, Ohio State, Bryan, Leonard, one of the most public teams. Them, Notre Dame, Michigan, they're going to be some money. The money going to roll in here, and it has been on Ohio State. Some people feel, no way, this should be, a lot closer to maybe a field goal, maybe just above, but anything near a touchdown is too much. Are you one of those people that think Ohio State being undervalued in this matchup?
I think if you take a look at what Ohio State has done, and I have watched every single Ohio State game. My wife is a huge Ohio State fan, so if you're living in a house with your wife and you want to watch football, chances are you're watching her team. So I've seen every Ohio State game. At home, they look great. This is a team at Ohio State I would take over anybody when they're playing at home. When they're on the road, not so much. Let's take a look at what they've done on the road. They did have that game against Michigan State. They dominated them, out-yarded them by 412 yards. That was their first road game of the season, and we've all found out since then that this Michigan State team wasn't very good. They go to Penn State. They get outgained at Penn State. The only reason they win is they get a +4 turnover margin, and they win that game by 13. They go to Northwestern, who had one of the worst teams the last couple of years than they've had in a long time. They actually got outgained at Northwestern. They only scored 21 points in that matchup. I believe it was a weather game, but both teams had to play under that weather. Then they go to Maryland. They lose by 1 yard in total yards in that game. They did have a turnover advantage, and they win that game by 13. So other than the Michigan State game, they really haven't impressed me when they've gone on the road. Now, they are coming off that embarrassing loss to Michigan. They didn't have to play in the conference championship, which Michigan did. So it's a longer layoff for them out of anybody in this Final Four. Is it a rust or is it a rest? I think at this point of the season, it should be a rest. But when you take a look at the Ohio State players, they've had guys that really were top-notch players coming into the season that will not be playing in these games. And that is something that so you have to take that into account. Yes, they have a lot of really good players on this team, but they're probably two best playmakers other than the quarterback will not be in this game. When I take a look at Georgia pretty much dominated everybody all season long. The only game that they didn't win the yardage was that game against LSU, and they win that game by 20 points with a +2 turnover margin. That was probably could have been their worst game of the season. But Georgia has the advantage. They've been in this building before. It's in their home state. You've got to give them some sort of an advantage for the home site here, I'd probably give them 1.5, 2 points in that regard. And to me, they played a little bit tougher schedule. Although I got to say, the SEC, if you're not one of the big games in the SEC, the lesser part of the SEC, it continues to be a money burner if you're betting SEC teams in these bowl games. Just keep that in mind. Your teams like your Vanderbilts, your Auburns, your teams like that, just go against them in these bowl games because it doesn't mean as much. It's a letdown, actually, because they used to play all these good teams in the SEC. And all of a sudden they're playing somebody that they don't have as much respect for. I made this game, excuse me, 5 on a neutral, so I'm making it 7. And the line just went down to 6. If I can get a 5.5 here, I think I'm going to come in on Georgia. I just don't trust Ohio State when they're playing quality teams. They've had a very easy schedule this year. They only played 2 good teams, Penn State and Michigan, and I wasn't overly impressed. Like I said, +4 turnovers in that Penn State game. Haven't made a play on this yet, but if I can get Georgia at 5.5 or less, I'll be back in the Bulldogs here.
Yeah, it's Merril, I mean, we've seen this line, right? Start a little bit higher, come back down. We'll start there. Do you seem to think that maybe this line's going to continue to move towards Ohio State? Or do you think Georgia eventually, closer to game time, will push this thing back up? Because the total also seems to be getting pushed up here as well. I don't know if that favors one or the other here.
Yeah, the brief opener was 7, so it makes sense that people grab +7 with Ohio State because we talked about the other game. That's a very key number. Once again, about a 4 to 5% chance Georgia wins this by exactly 7 points. Now that it's sitting 6 across the board, I see maybe a rogue 5.5, a rogue 6.5 out there, but it's a pretty solid 6. As far as the public consensus data, once again, it's not as strong as it is for the NFL with the stuff I look at, but I do see a little bit of a lean towards TCU as a public dog, but it looks like most of the spots I checked, the consensus lean is Georgia. So if I had to guess, Joe, I'd say it's more likely to probably go back up to 6.5 or higher by kickoff. So -6 right now might be the best number you're going to get with Georgia. If you like Ohio State, I would probably wait. It might go to 6.5. I doubt you're going to get 7, but I think the risk reward, once again, is worth waiting on the dog here. And I do think the line's a little inflated. I mean, if some of my raw power ratings only favor Georgia by about 2 points on a neutral, I agree with what Bryan was saying, though. I don't think this is a true neutral. I know Ohio State's going to travel well and whatnot, but Georgia plays a couple games a year in this dome. It's basically a semi-home field. They'll be very comfortable here. So I think that's worth a point or two. I do think the fast track, though, favors Ohio State. And as Bryan mentioned, they've been a much weaker road team. And I know they play outdoors at home as well. But they're a speed offensive team. And I do think the big difference in this game is the advantage that Georgia has defensively. You know, both teams give up 4.8, 4.9, but Georgia played a much tougher opposing slate of offenses in the SEC than Ohio State did in the Big Ten. In fact, Georgia's opponents are about half a yard per play better, 0.5 better than Ohio State. So Georgia is the better defense here across the board. But I think you can make a case that on a fast track indoors, Ohio State might be the better offense. So the move on from 60 to 62, I think makes sense with the total. And I think this line is a little inflated. I'm in no hurry to get in front of Georgia. And I really feel like Alabama is better than Ohio State. They don't get in. USC loses. Ohio State gets in. It's fine with me. TCU, in my opinion, as I said earlier, is the team that should not be in the Final Four. But I do think this line's a little inflated. We'll see if it ever hits that key number of 7, which I doubt. At that point, there would definitely be some value. And by the way, I ran the numbers real quick. 13 of the 16 semifinal games the last 8 years have been decided by 11 points or more.
Oof.
And 5 of the 8 title games have been decided by 15 or more, including the last 4. So that is overall 18-6, 11 points or more. So 18 of the 24 playoff games have been decided by double digits, 11 or more to be exact. So once again, if you like TCU or Ohio State, you better be playing some of it on the money line because they're both single-digit point spreads.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm sure, and as a matter of fact, I understand Urban Meyer got a phone call after they got blown out by Michigan, Tony Finn. I can't imagine what happens if they get blown out here by Georgia. Urban Meyer, I don't know if he's walking through that door anytime soon. It doesn't feel like his Ohio State kind of team. they got exposed in that secondary. And I love Jim Knowles, the defense coordinator they brought over from Oklahoma State. The guy is a genius. But they are very young in that secondary. Very, very young, in fact. And they got exposed in that Michigan game in the air, which is not something anybody has tried to do before. Stetson Bennett and Georgia more than capable of taking advantage. What do you do here? Do you look at the side? Do you look at the total? Who are you a believer in?
Well, first, Steve addressed public and sharp money in these games and the lines, and there's only one way to Bryan Leonard. There's only one way Leonard will see a 10 in that first game would be if some aberration happened where maybe McCarthy, something from Michigan becomes absent and the number jumps. Even then, I don't think that happens. But in this game, it's funny. It really is funny how, we didn't know a whole lot about Ryan Day. And I don't know how you guys follow. I do follow a lot of, the one thing I do a lot of is quotes and press conferences, and I try to read between the lines. I don't try intentionally read between the lines, but sometimes things just pop out. And there's a couple things in this game I think you can trust. First off, you can trust that Georgia's a better team. They're just a better team. You can trust that this game was set up. It's set up because we know that the networks would love to see Michigan, Ohio State, right? The most watched game in college football becomes the championship game. That's exciting for networks and what they can possibly do with that behind the scenes, obviously. Who do you trust here? Do you trust Kirby Smart or do you trust Ryan Day? Ryan Day's social skills are pathetic. The things that he said in his press conference, do you want to casually or subtly threaten Kirby Smart and say that you're smarter than Kirby Smart? Because you're not. There's not a football coach, not even Nick Saban. Nick Saban, this is one of his pupils, and Kirby Smart picked up more than Nick Saban and added it to his own ruthlessness any coach that played under Saban or coached under Saban. Let's just think about this. You mentioned the quarterback for these two clubs. You mentioned the disrespect that Georgia's quarterbacks got game after game, time after time, conference after conference. Do you remember people saying they were surprised that Stetson was in the Heisman finalists? Remember, he's one of the Heisman. They were shocked that Stetson Bennett was a finalist. Then Ryan gets on social media and says things, and public says, everybody's thought about Michigan, Ohio State. Everyone loved to see. You just don't say that. You don't say that. First and foremost, let's say when you disrespect Smart and Georgia, let me give you 3 examples that I think are good. Georgia 49, Oregon 3. Georgia 28, Tennessee 13. Georgia 50, LSU 30. Disrespect Kirby Smart, and it's on, and it's over. If there's one team that's as close to Michigan in this Final Four in football, that's as close to Michigan and what they did to Ohio State, it's Georgia. Very similar teams, really, in how they go about business. So what makes you think that this is going to change? It's not going to change. Give me Georgia and Michigan in the finals.
Georgia, Michigan finals there for Tony Finn, which brings up an interesting question. 2 favorites win. Bryan Leonard, Michigan taking on Georgia for the national championship game. Who's the favorite in your mind? Is it gotta be Georgia? Does it, as reigning champs, is it anything more than a field goal at this point?
It'll be Georgia, and depending on how these games go, it'll be in that field goal range, I think. I do want to point out, these games are going to be treated like the Super Bowl. So you're going to see a lot of people coming in and betting the underdogs on the money line. You see it all the time in the Super Bowl. If you do like the favorites, you're going to get a bargain on the money line. For example, Steve talked about the Michigan 7.5. There's a reason it hasn't gone to 7 yet, because Michigan people are waiting on that. So the Michigan money line should be quite the bargain in this game, because the TCU guys are going to come out and play them on the money line. Very similar with Ohio State. So if you don't get the line as a favorite that you actually want, you're going to get a good number in the money line. So that gives you another way to bet these games, as opposed to the regular season where basically they even out. The money line is this number equates to that money line. It won't be that way in these 2 games.
It's a great point, Bryan. I mean, Merril, what do you think here? Pressure's got to be on who? The defending champs? Is it Michigan because they're playing TCU? And, you know, the little guy, if it is the favorites, if we're looking Michigan and we are going to look Georgia, good chance Georgia repeats? Or do you think Michigan handles business the way they didn't last year?
Well, yeah, we have about a 50% chance that it's going to be Georgia-Michigan, just based on the odds to win the games. In fact, FanDuel right now is at -125, Georgia-Michigan. Obviously, there's a little bit of house edge built in, so that's why I'm saying the true odds are probably about 50%. 3-1 Ohio State versus Michigan, the Tony Finn matchup, the network matchup. 3.5-1 Georgia-TCU, and almost 10-1 odds that it's Ohio State-TCU. But, Joe, we do have bettable lines offshore for the 4 head-to-head matchups. Georgia right now an 8-point favorite over Michigan, and boy, I don't quite get that. I mean, look,
wow,
how is Georgia a 6-point favorite over Ohio State, who Michigan beat by like 20 points? I don't get that. So, you know, these offshore look-aheads aren't always accurate. Obviously, they're going to vary by a couple points, but they are getting bet into. Michigan +8. I'll put some money on that right now. And, you know, if the matchup doesn't happen, you get a refund anyway. So anybody out there that has access to that, I like Michigan +8 if you can find that as an advanced line against Georgia. Michigan +3 against Ohio State. Oof. Now, the caveat there is obviously if Ohio State beats Georgia, they're probably better than that Michigan loss showed us.
Right.
So that's interesting. Ohio State, a 10-point favorite over TCU, and Georgia, a 15-point favorite over TCU. If that doesn't prove that TCU doesn't belong in the Final Four, I don't know what does. And what's crazy is that means they beat Michigan, Joe, to get there.
Right.
And they're still a 10 or a 15-point dog. So I thought that was interesting to look at.
Yeah. No. It's obvious. I would guess that we're all in agreement that if an upset's going to happen, it's going to happen this week. And whoever the favorite may be in the championship game, in all likelihood, would be the one that is going to win it all. But you do have Georgia right now. I'm seeing odds to win it all. They're -130. Michigan is 3-1. Ohio State is about 3.5-1. And you mentioned it there, Merril, 15 15-1 here. I mean, Bryan, if you were to bet the game and back it up here with one of these future bets here, I mean, would you lean towards, mostly because you live in a house with your wife and she will cut you if you ever bet anybody other than Ohio State? So if you're betting Ohio State for this week, you might as well bet them in the future to win it all as well, no?
Where's the national championship game going to be played?
Yeah. That's a good one. Where is it?
Because
SoFi Stadium.
Oh, it's SoFi. Yes.
SoFi.
Okay.
Inglewood, California.
That's the reason why the 6 is different, because you've got the semi-home field advantage for Georgia.
Gotcha.
That you won't have in the other game. But, yeah, I'm
No,
with,
but Bryan, Georgia's 2 points higher on the neutral. That's what makes no sense. They'd be 8. By the way, DraftKings has these numbers too. It's 7.5 at DraftKings.
Okay.
That's why it's completely backwards.
Well,
exactly, to your point.
You have to keep in mind that Ohio State-Michigan game, Ohio State was a big favorite in that game.
Yes.
So if that game gets played 100 times, I would take Ohio State to win.
Great point.
Much more than 50% of those. So
yep.
Even though it's the one game, Ohio State's still a better team than Michigan is.
Yep.
So it may not turn out that way,
right.
But as of right now, you ask anybody who's the better team on their power ratings, they're going to have Ohio State over Michigan.
Yep.
Michigan's clearly the 3rd best team in the country. I don't agree that Alabama should be in over Ohio State. I think Ohio State on a neutral is probably favored over Alabama by a point or two. But it's Michigan right now. At those numbers, I would look to play Michigan because they've got the easier game. And Georgia, after playing Ohio State, do you really?
Point.
That's going to take more out of them than I think. Michigan playing TCU. So we'll see.
A good point. I mean, the value there. Tony. You like Georgia to win it all, but man, oh man, Michigan definitely, I think, has the easier game. Maybe a little more stressful because they're supposed to win, right? I mean, isn't that the whole? That's the problem. But You got to love the fact that Michigan was there last year. They got a lot of kids back on that team ready to roll. So I don't think they're going to take anything for granted. But if you're dropping a future bet in here, you got Georgia win it all. And you think Georgia's going to be playing Michigan? It's Georgia to win everything?
Well, that's where I am right now. That's where I probably will be a week from now. I mean, if things play out as I expect them to play out, that's where I'll be on Monday night and Tuesday, all the way up to the championship game.
It's Georgia.
I think so. I think. Listen, there's a lot of things I disagree and agree with you guys, but I think Michigan is a better team than people are giving credit for. And Ohio State, if you look at Alabama lost 2 games this year. 2.
Right.
And the truth is the 2 games they lost were head and shoulders better games, and they were better than Ohio State in some of the games they won. In my opinion, I just think they're a much better team. Ohio State has shown me I'm not a believer in Day. Until Day does something special, here's his chance. Prove me wrong, Ryan Day, that you can beat a team that is at your level or better than your level statistically. I think Georgia. I think the experience. I think Kirby Smart. I think some of the disrespect. I think I messaged it. Stetson Bennett he's here for a lot more reasons than a championship. He's got one.
Yeah.
I like Georgia.
Georgia to win it all for Tony Finn. Merril, who's the best coach remaining? Who do you give the coaching edge to here? Is because he's not a big Ryan Day guy. Sonny Dykes, this is the first real success he's had, right? So now it's on a major platform. I think Harbaugh's outcoached a lot of guys on the other sideline this year, and he's got the experience of losing it last year. He's already got he already beat Ohio State. He's got that off of him. So is Harbaugh the best coach remaining? Or until somebody beats him, it's Georgia?
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, I'm a big fan of Harbaugh's coaching abilities, but Kirby Smart's been there and done that, so I'd probably have to give him the nod. But I think there's no question it's Smart and Harbaugh neck to neck, and then a good distance behind it. Now, Sonny Dykes, you can make a case it's Sonny Dykes, just because this team is vastly overachieved. I mean, the theme of the show, obviously, is that I don't think TCU is one of the 4 best teams in the country. So I'm kind of talking myself into that now. But, yeah, I think Day is the 4th out of the 4 without a doubt. The other 3, you can make cases for and against them. And, by the way, guys, FanDuel also has advanced numbers up. They've got TCU, Georgia, 16.5. The offshore has 15. DraftKings has 15.5. They've got 8.5 for Georgia and Michigan, 7.5, 8, 8.5. So it just shows how these numbers are all over the place. But Bryan Leonard brought up a great point. Ohio State was a touchdown favorite, so and they are ahead in my power ratings. And by the way, Bryan, I do have them a point ahead of Alabama, so I agree with you. I kind of misspoke there. I felt like Alabama should have been over TCU as the 4th team. But it is what it is, and we'll see how it plays out.
Should be a fun one here, guys. Buckle up. Should be good. You can't sleep on TCU. Wouldn't be shocked if we start to see a little bit of money rolling in there. Hell, why not? Upsets or chalk in this year's national championship run. It's been chalk in the past. We'll see if that holds true. But either way, that wraps it up for this year and college football, the kickoff show. We want to thank you guys so much for hanging with us here. Stay tuned. Obviously, next week, once we get past these semifinals and we have the final, we may pop on one more time, get a quick after what happens here, maybe get these guys' thoughts on once everything is solidified, who we like for a national championship. But until then, of course, on behalf of Bryan Leonard, Tony Finn, and Steve Merril, I would encourage you guys to hop on board with all 3 now. Partner up here as we say goodbye to 2022. Visit them at wagertalk.com. Grab one of those 3-day, 7-day, 30-day all-access packages. Still plenty to go. NFL, college basketball, NBA, NHL, guys. Lot of very profitable reasons to hop on board with them. Visit them today here. Give yourself a little New Year's gift with Steve Merril, Tony Finn, and Bryan Leonard today. We appreciate the time, guys, all season long. Thank you so very much for hanging with us. Keep an eye out next year, of course. We will In fact, maybe have a couple of videos and a show here, maybe one big show with everybody that you have seen on the kickoff show this year. Maybe we all get back together and run down who we like to win it all. But until then, I want to wish you and yours a very safe and happy new year. We will talk to you again soon enough for sure in 2023. But until then, best of luck, guys. All your plays today and this weekend. We'll talk to you again soon. Good luck.
Ready to take your favorite Wager Talk handicappers wherever you travel this football season? The Wager Talk TV app is now live for phones, tablets, smart TVs, and streaming platforms. Tune into your favorite shows like Wager Talk Today, Bet On It, and the Opening Line Report, plus browse through our extensive library of sports betting tips. Create your personal playlist of betting tip videos to help you prepare for the upcoming season, and set notifications to alert you when new content is added. Download the app for Apple, Android, Amazon, and Roku devices by searching for Wager Talk TV, or scan the QR code on your screen to join the winning conversation today.